Hello?
Hello.
Hey.
Everybody hears me?
Hello.
Well-
It's the Indian guy speaking.
Welcome. Welcome back.
Yay.
Welcome back, Archit and Arthur. How you
Nice to
guys
be
are
back.
doing?
Good.
Great.
Thank you for accepting my invitation after what had happened last time on the episode that I had very fortunately cut. It's not going to happen again.
No, it's fine. I've decided a new way to handle situations like these. When things like these happen, I'm just going to stare at the camera like I'm in the episode of The Office or something. And when you edit it, it'll make you laugh. So.
You would be excellent at the office.
Yeah, I would be. Yeah. They didn't have an Indian guy stereotype, I think, in The Office.
Never
they should
considered
use-
like being an actor or something.
I'm not handsome enough.
It's not about being
I don't think that's
handsome,
true.
you know.
No,
I think you have what it takes.
I used to do a little bit of theater acting.
Oh.
Not theater. I can't call it theater. It was more like amateur college
Yeah.
kids messing around. We wrote a script and shit. It was fun.
All right. It sounds.
See, I've done that. I mean, in high school we had like
Yeah.
theater classes, and I took them just to try for 1 year, and it was I couldn't do that. Really.
Yeah, I enjoyed it quite. I was a stage person back
Yeah.
in college.
You still are like deep inside. You're
Deep inside, yes.
stage person.
That's one of the things that's fascinating to me about you. Is that you are living in this state of mind where you have to be absolutely focused on your work, which requires as little emotion as possible about the outcome.
Yeah.
And still, I think among all the people that I've met here, you are closest to the best balance that I've seen.
But this is true. Not consciously perhaps, but I do try to keep that balance as much as I can. Because otherwise I'd probably go crazy.
So how do you do it?
Everyone, I think.
How do I do it? Well, I realize when I'm not being emotionally satisfied. Like, for example, if I don't feel happy, sometimes, work in research is sometimes so taxing that you go one after the other, experiments, and nothing works.
Yeah.
And when stuff like that happens, I haven't been paying too much attention to my social sides or like just indulging in activities or whatever. I can feel that pressure much heavier than when I am balancing these things out. So when I realize that, I try to kind of correct the path, and
So it's self-reflection all the time.
I do a bit of that, yes, every now and then. I kind of have to, I think, because if I don't, if it even so happens that I work several days in a row and I feel like, okay, I don't think work is being really satisfactory, which happens more often than not, then I make sure that I invest some time in going out or meeting some friends who I haven't met in a long time, or just anything that would make me a bit more.
But you're kind of like super balanced. Because
Yeah.
Let's say you have a line, and this is like being neutral all the time, and in between feeling good and bad, or in between two extremes. And I'm like here, and then I'm like here, and then I'm like here. I have an extreme.
No.
I have an extreme personality, but you are like really almost on the line all the time. It means like you're balancing that like super fast and super, very precisely.
But I
kinda.
do feel a bit of wearing off every now and then. It's not, perhaps it's like the projection of it is different, but because I do self-reflection, I can tell when, I'm about to get off the rails now,
Yeah.
and then I realize that, and
Yeah, in my case, it's more like, it's been like a lot of time that I'm way off the rails, so I have to do something really big to go on the other side, and then it's balanced. But you're like super efficient at it. It's like,
And to your credit, you can't tell. I have a hard time saying when you're at the extremes, or
I mean, when you're going off rails, because
when you are going off rails. Because ever since I know you, I think you are the most balanced right now,
Yeah,
and it's. You are well. Sometimes you tell me when there's things that are better or worse, but it's you're one of those very few people where it's actually hard to tell without asking.
yeah, I mean, the only
keep it to yourself.
reason I have that perspective on you, that what you said just now was believable, is because you've told me in the past there were harder times. So I know that as like your background plot, that okay, this has happened at some point.
but I mean,
so it's relatable. But otherwise, I couldn't tell if I just met you today and you
it's
said
on
this.
an emotional level, and it's also because I tend to hide myself when I do my shit. It's just you can't really tell when it's emotional, like when you feel really depressed or I mean, it may show a little more when you're like super happy because you're like hyper and stuff.
Happiness, you
but-
kind of want to tell
yeah,
everyone.
But, yeah, it's just I try even when I'm on either side, and I try to just keep my eye on like going to work and do my stuff. So that's what keeps me going also. But yeah, when I do something, it's just even cooking. I do it like I can't cook for 2 people. I'm gonna cook like for a whole family every time. And if I have to cook for a whole family, I'm gonna cook for 500 people. I can do things like at a normal level. So.
But this is actually I just last week I shared this article, but it had a very interesting insight about this exact behavior, which is that when we are sad or when we start feeling lonely, evolutionarily we are tricked to think of it as an actual physical pain, not just like
As a physical what?
pain. It is
pain.
comparable to being attacked.
Isn't it? Well, yeah. Okay.
So
I think it's pain.
So yeah, I mean, we like to think of it as a more poetic concept that
it hurts.
the pain of loneliness, but our response, our bodily and mental response to it is as if we are actually being attacked. So people do the same things that they would do when they're actually attacked. They become defensive. They close off and they kind of back into the shadows and kind of thing. So this behavior is very well explained from the way our brain has tricked us into looking at this, because initially, very early on, when we were apes or even before that, we could do it all on our own. Like we could survive on our own. But as we became more and more social animals, it was essential for survival that we not be alone. So when we are alone, when we feel alone, the brain senses it as an imminent threat, not a threat that you can ignore or something. But that leads to this defensive mechanism, which only highlights the importance of social interactions.
Yeah, well, I mean, the lack of social interaction is probably the thing I suffer from the less. I mean, the demons I'm usually battling against, they are my own demons, not the...
Yeah, but
I really don't need a lot of social interactions to be not just functioning, but to feel good, I have chosen ones. And
do you remember where you qualify on the big five personality test that we have done on extroversion? What percentile are you in?
Oh, I don't remember. You have it, but
I was pretty high, I remember.
It was fine. As far as I remember, it was fine. By far, I was the highest among the people that we tried. I'm not bragging about it. It's just extroversion. Yes. So Arthur.
You mean you're the one of us who needs the less people around?
No, the most.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Arthur's moderately high. You end up on the 16th percentile. It's
Okay.
It's nothing extraordinary. It's pretty general. Let's see, Archit. I'm. It's not very interesting while I'm looking this up,
okay.
but
This is the time for research it takes.
Yeah, but it's funny though,
I think
because
it's good. Yeah.
I really don't. Yeah, maybe it's because I don't know. Maybe it's because I work in an environment most of the time when there are a lot of people, so it satisfies me, even though I
That
don't.
way it's taken.
I can't really tell it does.
Archit is 77.
Yeah.
So that's high.
I remember it being pretty high.
And let's see.
But maybe that's also that, because he's the one who works with the less people here, so maybe he's more. It's
Oh yeah, and I'm 72. Actually, you were scoring higher.
My interactions are few at work, but I do have. I could tell that would be because I do feel like an extrovert. I don't see myself in a bunch of people by myself. That rarely happens. I do get involved.
No, and you have a lot of artistic aspiration also, and not just learning the craft, but also sharing it, which is something that I profoundly understand because we do the same thing.
Yeah.
I just don't have the scientist side, which it kind of your way of functioning is kind of something that I would deem as desirable to me. I would love to be in that way.
I like to kind of artify science a bit is what I do in my mind.
Well, we talked about that the other day when we talked about the last time we had to get and stuff. You're also like super patient. Like,
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, that I do.
Cold-blooded,
I have
like,
to say.
yeah, with
Yeah,
the
yeah.
convoys and
Yeah.
stuff. Did you evolve in an environment with a lot of,
Argumentative people.
Yeah.
Yes, my
yeah.
dad.
Oh, your dad, yeah. Yeah, my dad is also like,
yeah.
that's always
So
arguing at home. But I was
Yeah.
like, wow, he's like super. And you were, because it's not just, in my case, it was like more, I'm just stepping back when and you were like keeping on it, but still keeping the things
Yeah.
done. And
Well, I
calm
think
and
I
clear.
actually enjoy debates a lot, and I can't emphasize it enough. When I say that, I don't mean I enjoy arguing, but I enjoy debates. So if I can keep the debate going, I would rather have it that way. I don't want the debate to get ruined, but I do want to keep it alive, because I do find it very interesting. I do find that at some point it might happen, and it does happen more often than not, that I get surprised by someone else's counterpoint, and I want to reach that point. So I love debates, and if you do want to get to that point, you have to be really patient. But the reason I evolved that patience is not to do with debates. That came later. It was mostly because my dad takes a lot of convincing, and I had to be really patient and really perseverant to get through to him.
It's
I
it's
feel you
interesting.
on that. I can
It's
really-
interesting seeing you guys how differently you handle these things. I saw how you
Yeah, he met
debate
my
your family,
parents.
and your family is they are putting you up to the task. That's for sure. They are
Yeah,
very
my father is like, they're like super educated and
Yeah.
and my
intellectuals.
my father, he does something, even sometimes like when you want to talk about politics or something, whatever, it's something we never talk about because it's really too much debate and stuff. But let's say about politics, and you're gonna say like these people, like let's say left wing. They do that, and he's gonna say, "Yeah, but that's bad because even if he doesn't think, even if he's on their side, he's gonna say that just to let you know that the other ones, they also have reasons, and stuff. And he
This is
does that
something,
all
yeah.
the time, even if he's not with the other one's opinion, even if it's not his, he's gonna do that all the time, and so it's like endless debates because he's pretty good at it.
No, this is something
it's
that
like-
should be done. I think it's a very good
Yeah,
virtue
but then
to
at
have.
home it was always like a lot of
Can be
talk and
exhausting.
stuff, and it took me like maybe 25 years, so I got to be right for sometimes. And it's like, yeah, he's pretty good. So fuck.
Can be exhausting.
I
Yeah.
saw it that they didn't give it to you easy, but it was friendly and it was
Yeah.
respectful. I didn't grow up in an environment like that at all, and I think you can see the difference. And I lose patience very fast, like I did last time, but which was one of the reasons why I cut the end of the episode, because this shouldn't be about that. What bothered me is that we didn't get to talk about these personality tests that we have done, because there are some interesting notions in them. Seeing the statistics, since a couple of our friends also have done it, and apparently our group of friends appreciate most of it all assertiveness. Everybody scores extremely high. It's weird. But I see-
Assertiveness being just to
Being
remind-
the capacity to work well with others. Let me give you their
Description.
their description. Yes, their definition. So those are the people who easily take charge. They put their own opinions forward strongly, and they tend to dominate and control social situations. Now, I think mine was the higher in that also, which is a problematic proposition when I'm not the most competent about the subject, but like it happened last time. So this is something I will have to take care of. But it's very interesting that how would you say that you are friends with people you can actually dominate?
No, actually, if I really, it takes me a moment only to get to the conclusion that is not the case. I tend to hang out with people who can dominate just as well, mostly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
think so too.
it's of course I am friends with people, but not completely. You can't dominate someone completely. There are always stuff, to.
Well, it's a prison sentence if you do so. I do understand. No, but there's people who prefer to be submissive. Let's say that.
Of course, that is a personality type.
So I don't know. For example, I'm gonna be more for if I'm choosing a partner like a girl or something, more a girl than something usually. But I need someone that I can admire. You know,
So-
even
oh,
if-
yeah.
admire like not physically, you know, but if she's
Well,
good
physically
at
too.
something, if she has a strength somewhere, I need that. So I can a strength that I don't have,
Okay.
or that I have but at a lesser level. You know, I need that.
No, me too.
So
I need
what
that. And
personality?
I think it's the same with social interactions. If I see someone like, just you know, it depends on that person's competencies. Because
Yeah.
if that person is pretty good at something, but I know that I can get there easily. It's not gonna be. I need to be impressed, kind of.
I think all men actually do when it's about a healthy choice of a relationship. I mean, I would assume. I'm not sure, but my case is exactly the same. It's like you gotta have something interesting. And this is I had this is exactly one of the topics I wanted to get to today because last weekend I had a date which ended very weirdly. It was very respectful. First of all, she was the one insisting on it, and I had nothing better to do. So I was like, yeah, well, let's see where this goes. But well, I didn't have any expectations, which I think is a good standard to have in
Yes.
situations like this.
Coming openly and
But you know, I think there are certain the type of women that I am after. They can be impressed with a certain amount of things, and I don't possess many of those. So those that I do, I try to craft to an absolute maximum, which I think. So what I'm trying to say is that I tried my best all my life to be a good storyteller and have something to say, interesting stories, and I expect the other person to have the same thing or at least something. And for the first time in my life, I met somebody who actually it must have been me lacking the capacity to extract the stories, but I was telling her the life story that has led me here, which is, well, it looks good on paper and I think it's a good story. Certainly it's easy to present it right, but her response to it was like, yeah, I'm currently battling my neighbor, an old woman. I was like, okay. What's up? Yeah, she's terrorizing me. And I was like, okay. She invited me to her place. I was like, that's a weird way of terrorizing somebody. And she
bake you something
and she came
make it worse,
and
or
she came close, and she comes close to me and she talks to me every time. And I was like, are you sure she's terrorizing you? I think she's sympathizing with you and you misunderstand the whole. Yeah, but she's mean. I was like, yeah, because she's 90 years old. Everything hurts. All her family is dead. Everything she knew was gone. But wouldn't you be sour? I mean, she's just trying to make connection. And after that, the conversation just stopped because we had nothing else to talk about, which is rare in my life.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
then she's-
no, that happens. That happens often. It's just that you maybe you don't go enough on enough dates. I mean,
well, you have certainly more experience in this
no,
matter
it's,
than I
it's
did.
not about that. It's just
and this is why I wanted to ask your opinion about it.
It's more than that. Let's say I used to care less about the conversation.
Well,
What did
that
you
was-
care more about, Arthur?
Asses.
Asses
I'm
are
an ass
important.
person.
And it's-
I'm an ass guy. No, but no. Seriously, it's just it happened to me like recently, actually. And there was I met a girl, and she was telling me, she was talking about herself, and she was like complaining all the time, like.
Yeah, well, that happens.
Like even if when she was it was like you have a band, you know, you enjoy it a lot, but you gotta rehearse and you're gonna complain about the rehearsal you have to go to, like every time. She was like, yeah, I do that. She does a certain sport, and she was like, yeah, but I have to go to trainings, Mom. No, it's your fucking choice. And she was like, yeah, I work. She works as some kind of justice clerk or something like that, you know. And I don't know exactly, but she was, I have to work with lawyers, and they are mean. Why would you give a fuck? There, you don't have to deal with them. They just hand you papers. Yeah, but they are assholes.
You do know she might watch this video, right?
She doesn't speak English. That's a French girl. She doesn't speak.
Yeah, and
Ooh, I'm gonna get blasted for that. It's like
but you're like you might be like 70% French. So. No, and I was like, at some point I was just stop complaining, and she was like, but why? And I said, these things, you like them, yes, but why do you complain about it? I mean, you have a good life. You do something you like. You have hobbies. You have friends. Why would you complain? Like, if it was like she needed it. Like, to feel good. She needed to complain about everything. And she was she was the type of girl who I hate that, who always assumes what you're thinking of her. Like, yeah, I know I'm boring.
She gives it into your mouth. Like, and also acts upon it. Now that's the one
when I want to say something, I say it. You don't need to say it for me.
This girl I met, she did exactly the same thing. It's like I didn't respond for 12 hours. I fell asleep in front of my computer after work, and she was like, "All right, I can tell that you're not interested. Goodbye," and everything. I was like, "Sorry, I had shit to do. I have a life." And then I know that's
especially when you choose. When you're the kind of person that chooses his words, and when you say something, you say it accurately and you say it like out loud. I just hate. So when someone does that for me, and especially if it's the wrong way, if I get bored, I'm gonna tell you. It's not like you don't have to say things or assume what I'm.
That's your assertiveness talking, by the way.
It seems like two things out of this. Like, one is that many people do this is they replace having an interesting conversation with complaining about something, because they have nothing else when nothing else comes to their mind to talk about. They just start complaining about things. Thinking that is some sort of a conversation. That's what I meant. It usually isn't.
One of the last times I met someone, and after a while I was like, you couldn't. I had nothing more to say, because she was. You could say something, and she was answering, but complaining about something, or diminishing herself. And what kind of conversation can you have with that kind of people? It's just. It's not stimulating at all. It's just.
I'm still figuring it out, and it's a very good question to ask. I think. Well, I'm genuinely interested in people, and I want to get to the bottom of this, because, well, we have this format, and I'm interested in those people also. And I think I've been thinking about where it comes from. What I'm more interested in asking first is people outside of France perceive French people like people who like to complain. I think that's more the general consensus than not.
Yeah, it's more an American thing, because we had a revolution, but
oh well, I'm not saying there's no other nation that complains.
It's true. We tend to have a lot of protests, and
one of the reasons why it doesn't bother me, because I don't think you're over the level how Hungarians complain. It's just I see that justified more than.
do you have a lot of protests there? I mean, on the streets.
Not protests, but I'm talking specifically about complaining. Protests, no.
Because I think we are more we're seen by other countries as complaining people, because we protest a lot, and it's well known. Like we have a lot of protests.
What did you have as an experience? Because you had a couple of dates, right?
Yeah.
It's fine.
I've had.
I don't know how much you are willing to talk about this. We don't have to. If you
no, well, we don't need to go to that to answer the question. So.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, about the complaining part, the only reason I am aware of the stereotype is because I was told it is the case. It's not that I got the impression that French people complain a lot just by itself. It's just that people told me, "Oh, French people, they love to complain." I was like, "Oh, okay, so I guess that's a stereotype."
Okay.
But it still isn't enough of a personal experience that I can generalize it myself.
Yeah,
but people say that
you evolve more into, let's say, international people than really.
Well, first of all, in your circle of friends, there's a certain level of education.
It's not the same crop.
You don't speak French, which also limits. I mean, you do.
Yeah, they're not even mostly French. I mean, the people you evolve in, they're like from.
And the people that I have had dates with were also mostly not French. I've only been on a date with one French person so far. Let me think. Have I been on? No, just one French person, one French girl so far. That's about it.
How was it in comparison to the others?
Yeah,
It was
I'm
nice.
interested
She was really nice. She wasn't complaining that much at all, actually. So I don't think that applied to her.
Yeah, it's just it's just.
No, she was nice. Other than that, I haven't been on a date with a friend. No, one other person. But she was also not complaining. Wow, okay. 2 out of 2 then.
Well, I've
No-
met
no
you and you
complainers.
don't shit on the streets, so I guess it might be a stereotype too.
Must be.
It must be.
I don't know many people who complain, to be honest, either.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so,
I
so it
know
was a
that.
stereotype that I was told is a stereotype.
Yeah, me
but
too.
my personal
Yeah.
experience, I don't think so.
Well, I know some, but I don't think it's more here than anywhere else. But I know more French people than the both of you combined. So
Yeah, that's true.
I know some, but I also know
In
some
my
like really strong people who never complain here and there. But so yeah, I guess it's a stereotype, or it's more based on our tendencies to protest on the streets a lot, because like we have mandatory protests like every year on the I don't even remember, it's in the beginning of the month of May, you know, it's like the first of May, it's protests, it's a tradition, you know.
Jesus. Really?
Yeah, because it's and it's historically it's la fête du travail. You know, so
Yeah.
you have to
Celebration of work
So
day.
you gotta protest, and it's we have that one, for example. So
Oh, you have a couple. That's true. And I see some protests, but they are not they are not like the protests I see in other countries. I wouldn't bring them under the same umbrella as complaining, though. It's just you have a lot of passive resistance. I don't think complaining is that, though. I mean, the kind of complaining I am thinking about is not that kind, I think.
But I'm not inclined to undermine protest by calling it just complaining. So I wouldn't say just because you guys have more protests, it speaks to how.
well, it's complaining openly
yes, but
about your country
No,
or
it's
what's
active.
happening.
Resisting, actually.
exactly. It's an action. Complaining, at least the way I look at it, and I
No,
don't
an
know.
action would be taking actions
Yes.
and not just protest.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
protest is just you shout out loud
No, but you're getting attention
that
to
you're not happy with something. When you break things, you start to break things. That's an action. But protesting is not an action. You just walk on the streets and shout that you're not happy. It's not really, you know, it's just a way of
I think
expression than an action.
I think it's a matter of where the goalpost is between how you and I describe it.
And also,
Maybe that's
I have
where-
to disagree with you. It is an action. You have to go there.
think it is an
Hungarians
action.
don't take action. They complain. They tell you to your face that I don't think the regime
Yeah,
is
but-
right, and they don't do anything about it.
Yeah, but then it's equally an action than just complaining and saying things.
No, not
If you
exactly,
just
because
say
it does have an effect, a ripple
it's just-
effect. It does have a consequence.
You could sit in
to
your
it.
room and complain about something to your girlfriend whole day long, but that's not going to change anything. But
But-
if you take the streets in mass, in huge numbers, that's going to cause something, whatever it does.
Not here, because we do it
A lot.
We do it a
But
lot.
that's desensitization. It's
yeah.
a different issue. But
Well, okay, there might be a.
that's what I'm
difference
saying. It's a
in the way
goalpost
we-
different. Yeah,
No, I think
where you
that
set it.
the thing is that a democracy works so in such a fine way. Works in France. I'm not saying it works in a perfect way, but it has some finesse to it that requires, you know, that. From the outside, it would look weird that you have all these protests and nothing's happening, but there is actually a consequence to every single protest that I've seen here. So not a lot, but again, it is kind of a resistance.
You know, there is a concept that's called resistance to change, and it's something that's measurable, and it's something that's taught to people who are managing people, like for example in big companies or stuff like that. For example, let's say there is a company and it's malfunctioning. It's not like, let's say, like the performances aren't optimal. So you got to change something. So you hire like an audit company or something, and they send someone who's gonna look at everything and say, okay, that could be like, that could work better. That could work better. That could work better. And he's gonna make a report. And then, let's say these rules and the things you have to do that are on that report, you can't apply them directly because it's too much change for the people in the company, and they are going to resist to that change. So actually, to make some changes that are effective, you have to choose lesser changes, smaller ones, but these are going to get accepted. So, you have to go step by step. And I think that's what we do with our politics and stuff. We can do like the things that have to be done. Yeah. So it would work really, but because people won't accept them. So we have to choose, smaller things, but that are really going to change.
Yeah, but it's a bit like your language also. It's like, it looks like a lot written down, as opposed to listening to it. So the effect of saying it out loud, or the effect of a protest or a political movement, it has a smoke. Its smoke is bigger than the fire. I don't know if you have this proverb, but it's the same kind of idea. But I honestly think it works though. Looking at it long term. Because it's not for nothing that is the second richest economy in Europe.
Yeah, well.
It's not for the big numbers. You have big numbers elsewhere.
Yeah, but it's just, anyways. Our democracy, it's not perfect, but it's never perfect. I mean, in any country where there is a democracy, it's not perfect. They work differently, and there are always things to improve. It works. It fucking works, because we are a country. We are going. We have we are not in debt too much or something. We are functioning. So somehow it's working. Obviously, it's like in Germany. True. They have protests too, and their political system is much different. Based on alliance and stuff. But still, it works. They're running, and it works especially because after the Second World War, everyone worked on them. I mean, they were ruined by everyone. So they managed to still make it after that. So it kind of works.
Actually, if you think about it, that their mentality is interesting because historically speaking, they always managed to build up the highest grossing economy from absolute zero. And during the course of the 20th century, they were demolished twice to nothing, absolute poverty, and they built it up again to the highest grossing economy, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah, the second time was more sustainable, though.
Thank God.
That's because we've had more peace since then.
I think. Why do you think that is? By the way, what do you think they changed?
I think it's because the world is a more peaceful place since then. That's all.
They changed what?
They had to change something so it would be sustainable, no? I mean,
it's just that the first time was clearly not sustainable, because then if you do it the way they did it at the time, you're gonna have everyone against you. So
not everyone was against the Nazis. I mean, there was a lot of allies.
Not everyone, but they ended up even the Russians were against them. So it was them, the Italian, and the Japanese, and that's not enough, so.
Well, it wasn't. That's for sure.
It wasn't enough. But I guess the major cause for World War II was the resentment that came after World War I. So it was one caused the other in more than one ways, because World War I led to quite a debilitating economy, and the government that was installed after the World War I was not something the people had much faith in. And that's what led to the rise of right-wing.
That's what happens.
Nationalism.
It happens
Germany,
nowadays in
Europe. It's exactly what we see happening
in Italy, in Austria,
in India, which I guess not many people know.
I don't know about
India.
Exactly. Look at that. Even in the Scandinavian countries, how the nationalists are strong there. I mean, they have a different economy, and they're pretty strong economically speaking and stuff, but they're not countries with problems, because of course you can see a rise of the right far right wings when there are problems in the country, when the country is poor, when there are difficulties, because they are populists, and they know how to talk to poor people who are deep into these problems, and that's how they rise. But
it's called the daddy problem.
It's
no, seriously.
I think it's scary, kind of. What's happening in Europe? It's not like I can sleep at night, but it's
a bit.
There is a bit volatile. Of something about the Germany pre-World War II. It's something poor people are fed up. There are difficulties here and there. And you have far right people, and they know how to talk to them, and they are
I wouldn't say it's that bad, but yes, it is quite volatile. And the reason I said it's a daddy problem, it's called daddy problem, is because when things are peaceful and calm, people want someone to take care of them, which is the mommy role in the conventional patriarchal society, and they look towards progressives because progressives are good at making seem like everything is okay, everything's going well. But when they have issues like a threat or something, when they perceive something as a threat, they want a daddy in charge, which is when they usually go for the right wing politicians who are more aggressive, who are more build a wall kind of characters, not the kind who would tell you, oh, it's going well, it's been going well for a while. No, these are the ones who will tell you it's been shit. Let's do something really extreme to make it stop. And this is what's been happening around the world. I think over a certain time, people got used to a bit of peace and progress throughout the world.
That's the hard times create strong people, who create good times, create weak people, and then it's a ring.
And then it got to a point where there was just resentment, and especially since the rise of the internet, when many of the people from both sides, but for some reason favoring the other side more, led to exposing of a lot of corruption in the government, which led to complete mistrust in government which was largely progressive in many places, let's say a decade back or so. So once you lose trust in the government, it's a threat. And then you see right-wing politicians coming up because now you need a daddy. And this is a theory. It's not my theory at all. And I don't think it's the only theory either, but it is a theory that's why we see this rise of...
Yeah, but I mean, but the right being stronger, it's not so bad. It's just,
I think it's fairly bad.
Yeah, but you say it's not really that bad. Before you said it's okay. I think it's okay, but it's just when they actually get to take the power, like you have a far right president or something like that, and we're getting even closer and closer to from that in a lot of different. Look at what happened in Brazil. How it changed. That guy, he's a fucking loon. He's crazy. The Brazilian president, the guy who got
Maduro.
That's in Venezuela.
Sorry.
They have an opponent and stuff. No, the guy who got elected in Brazil was like, I don't know, 1 month ago, something like that. And the guy, the first thing he's done, like the first 2 days were amazing. Like so many things said from people from his government, like they are like all fucked up. Like the people responsible for the education in the schools, they said no, like stuff like girls in pink, boys in blue. There is no homosexuality. Wow. That's a sin and stuff. The president, he said, they had a let's say ministry. They had a ministry that was responsible for managing the land that's given to the native Indians and the land that's given to the agriculture. The guy said, okay, this is not going to work. Finished. All the land management is going to go to the agriculture ministry. So what they did was like, the Indians, go fuck yourself. Come here, land. Come back to us. That's going for the agriculture. And the guy are fucked. They're fucked. In 2 years, there's no rainforest anymore there. They're going to...
But that's the thing about right wing. It escalates pretty quickly.
Oh, sure.
Thanks.
It escalates pretty quickly. Right wing ideas are fairly misportrayed, I think, because at least the way it was supposed to be, conservatism was supposed to be about less regulations.
Exactly the opposite. Conservatism is about more regulation. It's about
fairly certain conservatism is when you have less regulation, a smaller government, and progressivism is when you have a larger government with a lot of regulations. That's the traditional contrarian ideas in play.
I don't think the size of the government. I think it's a side effect in it. You both are losing me in a big way. In one. Yeah.
Well, I'm trying to bounce off of what he said about right.
Go ahead. I won't lose my pace.
What you were saying is exactly accurate. It escalates so quickly and so in such a weird, unbelievable manner. But the core of the reason I said I don't think right wing is a good thing is because I don't disagree entirely with ideas of conservatism. Some of them can be good, and those policies are not to be completely ignored. But it escalates so quickly that I'd rather stay completely away from them. which is the problem.
Yeah,
that
it's with extremes, you know. It's like with the extreme left ideas, it's just as much. It's fucking crazy. I think politics, you know, they have good things in the left wings and right wings. It's just about the balance and the capacity from one side to counter the other side in a democratic way. That's what makes things work from what I've seen now in history.
And there's a third aspect to it. It's the situation that you're trying to solve. That is
also
because. I think the reason why we have this one-dimensional political system existing is because both of them are right at the same time.
Yeah.
And what it requires is a conversation between the two.
Yeah, it takes more time, but it's more sustainable and more
because well, if you think about it, conservatism, as far as I can understand it, it's all about maintaining borders. Keeping up borders. Let me present the idea, which isn't mine. I got it from the internet, but I think, well, like we all do, and borders are important, right? That's why you have walls in your house. That's why you have walls around your city. That's why you have, I don't know, language barriers. That's why we have borders with other people. That's why we have a hard time reacting to somebody who looks very different to us because we have that border. It could be useful in certain situations, especially when managing a lot of people. I think it's a useful thing to be able to think in boxes. You have to be able to have boxes in order to start grasping the complexity of the world. It doesn't work any other way. I think our mind genuinely works like that. And as far as I can tell, the other side is about total liberty, which is I kind of agree with the opportunity when it comes to it, but I don't want anybody to be thinking that they could, for example, kill me for my motorcycle and have no consequences after that. So it needs some kind of borders.
Yeah, but
that's a false dichotomy.
I tend to agree with that. It's just that with the border,
false dichotomy.
How is it false?
I'll let you finish. No, I'll let you finish.
It's just that with borders, it comes the notion of possession comes, and then you know it can be also a source of conflict. You know,
possession.
Yeah, because when you draw a line, you say this is mine, this is yours. You know, so there is a notion of possession in that, and that you know. Because people are going to cross that line, of course,
they have
all the
to.
time.
We do.
Always do.
It's like I have my stuff and you have your stuff.
There are borders that, yeah, it depends on, I guess, how your borders can be open and.
Well, that's I think.
That's politics. That's the politics about the borders. You draw a line and then you have a different way to manage.
When it comes between nations, but you also manage these balances in yourself. So.
No, I'll get to it, but I'll use the same analogy that you use, which to agree with you in saying that it's kind of like if you imagine like boxes, when you keep things sorted in boxes, it's great, and which is where the idea that having compartmentalization is a good thing, but the extreme opposite of that is just pure clutter, everything lying around everywhere. The middle ground, which is what politics should reach at, is boxes that can be opened. To use the same analogy,
but that's already what we have. Like we have borders, we accept some people, we refuse.
That's what you would maintain, and that is the middle point to this, which is the good thing.
And I think it's achieved here.
It's achieved.
Yeah. We have like,
but people who want to argue closed borders, they don't mean to say. That's where I come to the point of false dichotomy. Is that one ground is where you say, yeah, we need to have a border, and the other side is say, no, we don't want to let anyone in ever. We want to live in a completely secret society. And these are not opposites at all.
No, you are. That's exactly the same thing.
Yeah, it's like in chemistry.
No, the other side I said is not that.
No, your false dichotomy was a different one. On one side, you said things that are already true, which is compartmentalization. It's already true. We are divided by language and borders and cities. And on the other hand, you mentioned is total anarchy, but that is not the opposite of having a compartmentalized society. The opposite of having a compartmentless society is where people mix with each other, not anarchy.
No, I'm not.
That's what I meant by false dichotomy.
Okay, maybe I explained myself wrong, but what I'm saying is that both sides has their good qualities and bad qualities, and both can be going wrong very fast. This is as in my estimation, this is what was the 20th century about. Is that two big nations in spectacular fashion, tried tried out these extremes in a nationalistic sense. They went to war, 100 millions of dead people ended up on it. And so to answer my own question, if you have ever talked to our generation of German people who have seen nothing of the war, I don't think of the immediate aftermath either. I don't think many people here remember the fall of the Berlin Wall, for example, because I was 3 years old. I don't remember it. I mean, I know I was alive, but that's pretty much it. I just saw the consequences of it. But when you talk about that with German people, the ones I talk to, they feel shame.
Yeah, but you have a gist of what it could have been through your grandfather. I mean, mine, he fought the German. He left his house when he was 16, and that's something, it's not like he talked about it like all the time, but I know some stuff. And your grandfather, the war, it had consequences all over Europe. Yes, but
I mean,
it's different from just reading what it has been in a book. It's you. You didn't have to live with it, of course.
I didn't see
still,
it. Which means my mentality and my upbringing is not as affected by it as the previous generations. And
but it is quite transcendent in the sense
that
I
guilt,
don't think it is at all.
That guilt, it's true though. With the younger generation of Germans, not maybe the last one, but the people from our generation, it's true. For example, in Berlin, that can be, you can see that they are like the left wings, they're like promoted like crazy. You have like left wings everywhere, like Antifa people, and all that stuff is like really something big. But we have that in France too, kind of, with this guilt towards Jewish people,
Oh, you have that everywhere in Europe.
Yeah, but in France, it's like, for example, you can make jokes more easily about Muslims than Jewish people, and that's a reality. That's something
I didn't know that. It's interesting.
That's something, and it's not that I say we shouldn't do that, or maybe it's just a fact. I mean, it's true.
A joke is a joke, so
yes, but you tend to not make so many. Like you see the stand-up comedians, they don't make so many jokes about Jewish people being gassed and stuff like that. No,
But it's
I watch the ones that do.
You don't see so many bits like that, but you don't watch like French stand-up or stuff like that, or just French comedians. But
I do.
Even in the I don't know, in the newspapers, like these funny comics or things like that. It's something we are very shy about, and it's because we had like in the northern half of France, we had like we had this collaboration thing, It's like we had a French, the Gestapo. It was like French people, a French police, but managed by the Nazis, who they were basically, that was in every. But they were like, we have something with this. Like I think we did a lot of bad things to the Jew, and we kept that guilt, somehow.
And I think it's rightfully placed.
Mm-hmm. I don't think it shouldn't be there, but
no, I think it should. It is a bit deeper with German people because they have been claimed to have started this whole idea, and I think they did. But it's a weird. It makes me very uncomfortable seeing somebody feeling guilty about something that happened before they were born. But that's one thing. At the same time, I think it is a feat of the German culture that distinguishes it from anything else around them. They have reflected upon themselves to understand where the error was made and making sure that it doesn't happen again. And I think some of that been done in France, and it is translated to this guilt that you're talking about.
Nowadays, you can see that it's been like since a decade or something. The right wings in some regions in Germany, it's starting to rise again. So I think it really depends on the level of education of the people, because in some region it's really something that appears clearly. Now, like
I think that has a precise reason.
But generally you're right. Like there is still that
talk about that. But you guys see this whole thing that happens in Europe in a way that I don't think is real, in some sense. Let me explain. As far as I can tell, there's two simultaneous things are coming. This was one of the subjects I wanted to talk to Anna about because, well, her being German would have been a very good point of perspective, but unfortunately we didn't have the time. I knew of another French girl before whom with I was able to talk about this, and it was a very interesting experience because. Again, she felt guilty about something that her ancestors have done, and to be fair with the Germans, they have contributed and still contribute to the world culture and scientific evolution on a level that's very impressive. So let's not neglect that first. So there's that. I think what we also see. Is that the media is dying. The way of news report and information passing is dying, and it's getting desperate. And what you see is only the negatives that are happening currently, and you are biased to see that. So, beside having that said, I agree that there are some stuff happening. And because the population is rising, because resources are hard to get, and because people are used to be comfortable, and we are competitive.
I agree with that. I kind of have to agree with that because the media does portray
it's not
largely negative things in a desperate attempt to not just get but keep the attention of their audiences.
It's clickbait.
Because since the internet took its full form, it's become harder and harder for conventional media to make money in a honest way, and I'm not going to tell them that I understand it, but no, what they're doing is absolutely wrong. They're just inflammatory statements or debates that shouldn't be had in the first place are regularly shown just to cause more concern amongst the crowds. So I agree with that absolutely. The only issue is that no, there isn't an issue. The only thing that I would like is a balanced media which does show the negative but does not ignore the positive. Because yes, there is rise of right wing that we can see palpably in some regions. So I wouldn't want a media that ignores it, especially on the internet. If there is no media, it's very easy to get distracted on the internet with just pure entertainment. Forget positive versus negative. So I do want a bit of focus on the negatives, but not to the extent that the media is doing. The media right now is doing the worst job that they've ever done.
Well,
no, I don't think it's true. I really do think it depends on who's presenting the information.
Of course, I can't say everyone's
newspaper. You always had like right-wing papers, left-wing papers, and then in France, for example, you have the Figaro, which is more on the right, or you have Libération, which is more on the left, and then you have Le Monde, Die Welt in Germany, or it's a bit like the Times. They're like. They do a fairly good job, and they try to stick with it and do some real reporting,
Yes, every now and then there is a flash of real reporting, which is impressive, and it really makes you feel good about that. But it's not. I'm speaking more to the systemic effect that I see.
It's not that the media is worse than before. It's more that a lot of new ways to present some self-called information. And I mean, they're like rising. We are like flowed under that, clickbait, BuzzFeed, and all like Huffington Post bullshit. It's like this is not real.
No, it's on the left and the right equally. I think.
It's not. They're trying to. It's not about politics. It's just about the quality and of the information, the said information that's presented to you, and the way it works. So you still have like valuables medias. It's just that they are flawed in a sea of shit and clickbaits.
It's hard to seek those. It's harder to seek those out.
It's more about how educated you are and how you are going to be able to find and to go and seek for the good information and the good, the real job.
I agree with you, but I think that is one of the issues. It used to be. At least the way media was ideally started was with the intention to inform people. Uninformed, uneducated people would get their information or knowledge or whatever from the media. So now that you need to be educated to find the right media or the good kind of media, it kind of neutralizes its initial objective. Is what I think.
When there was no internet, for example, people would shout and sell the newspapers on the street. But for example, in England, it was the Sun. Would you say that the Sun is a
it was always
a good
terrible
newspaper? So but it has always sold pretty well. So it's just that the situation is the same. It's just the proportions that are different.
I think it doesn't put them in a very good light that they are desperate. Because more and more, in order to be first, and in order to get the clicks and the attention and the advertiser money, and so that they could pay their own bills in a system they have used since we know, they distort. And as you know, for a very long time, until there was a monopoly over this distribution of information, I think those who actually developed the technology had this mentality about it, that it should be kept clean as much as it is possible. Now then sure, of course, it has gotten biased, but it has never been as black and white and as depicted as a tragic situation as it is. And why I feel very badly about it is because, would either of you say that despite the difficulties or the obstacles that we have to overcome, that we have a bad life here?
No, I don't.
Not
think
the
so.
slightest.
So yeah, it's true that.
The world is better right now for most people than it has ever been.
Here, that's for sure.
We have a good
places.
life here. I mean, of course, people are complaining. It
looks like it.
The reason we feel
but
things
yeah,
are going to
it's-
shit is because the media tells us so.
I don't feel it's real. I don't have a TV. I just read papers, or I choose what I see on the internet. But what's interesting nowadays is it's also that that's one of the reason I suspended my Facebook page because I was like flooded with these. It's not only these clickbait companies and fake reporting and fake news that appeared. It's also at a very small level. Like people now they have phones and then they
WhatsApp
make
groups.
videos, and they make videos, they put them online, and they present these like information. It couldn't be more biased. It's just a video. It's out of context things, and they put the context in the presentation. It's really we live a crazy
falsifying the news has never been easier.
yeah, and it's on both level, like the smallest one and the bigger one. It's like
but those are the
everyone is
traps.
sending like that's information and broadcasting everything, and it's crazy. I mean, it's
What really boggles my mind is that if you are trying to come up with facts that you could write about, you can come up with an unlimited number of them.
well, I don't
It
think
takes work, but
I don't think I could, or I don't think you could write an article and say these are facts. I think he could, but he's trained to do that with their papers. Scientists, they have to do that, and they are the only one asked to do that. Like, we ran studies, we ran experiments. These are the results. And so we can say
I was
that
just gonna say that.
no one does
but
that besides scientists.
well,
It's,
yeah.
I would want my media to be the way my papers are written and the articles I read are written.
I don't think it's possible.
I think it is possible. And
Yeah,
the
some
reason I
people
think
I
that...
think it is possible, and you are actually reading it. That's what's called a scientific paper.
No. I
That's
don't mean the method. The method is possible for sure. We do it every day. I mean, it's possible to implement this method in telling of news, because telling of news is telling of facts. And if you can cite your sources in a reliable way, by that I mean through reliable sources, then you should have some credibility until you're proven wrong, which is exactly how science works. It's not solid. We do get things wrong sometimes. So will the media, of course. And when they do get proven wrong, you retract it. You don't keep it online. You don't keep promoting it or advertising. You take it back. Not just take it back. The next episode of the media house should remember the thing we said?
Yeah.
Turns out it's not true.
There is an editor.
That kind of accountability is possible.
Like that, yeah.
Exactly. But it's rarely seen because A, people move on. So why would the media want to remind you that they were wrong? And B, they don't want to really have reliability to this degree. If they do, they won't be able to make sensationalized news anymore.
Yeah.
It's
And
it's
that's
like in the
important for their business. So
poor quality papers, they write articles about something and they cite someone like Bernadette 58. Who the fuck is she? What's her credibility? How do I know that?
Yeah.
It's like, it's not worth much. It's,
So how do you guys think we could solve this problem?
there used to be a time
that's what
when initially when the media started, like the Sun, for example, which is a very bad good example to give, is that it was always terrible, and it has since always been terrible.
yeah, it's a tabloid. They even have
Very early on, the media houses were going the same direction they're going now: sensationalization to keep their audiences attention as long as they can. And at one point, and this happened in India, it happened in the US. I don't know if it happened in countries in Europe, but there was a resolution made, which was that you do whatever you want with the 24-hour broadcasting that you do, but there'd be 1 hour in the day when you will do the news the way the news is supposed to be done. It will have some amount of oversight, and you tell them what happened in the country today or in the world today. That 1 hour was called prime time slot, which now has a completely different meaning, but that was the idea. We had it in India too. We had it in the US as well. And that 1 hour was supposed to be just real news. No sensationalization, no telling of political bias stuff, just what happened today.
Would people watch
It was
that?
a great idea because people used to watch that. People used to actually be like, oh, let's turn on the TV at this time because prime time and we'll watch this. That changed completely at one point because more and more of media houses became richer and richer and they bought into the governments to reduce these regulations as much as they could. So now they don't have a mandate anymore. But if you bring back such a mandate for an hour or a couple hours, we could try and restore media to a point where there is some degree of accountability. This exact kind of accountability that we just talked about. That 1 hour, you present just the facts, no opinions, no editorials, no.
The problem is that it wouldn't be in the interest of any.
Which is why you do it only 1 hour. I get why they
but
don't
who
want to
would
do it.
finance it?
That's the thing. They don't want to do it because it's uninteresting.
No, they don't want to do it because it's very hard to monetize it.
That's what.
Yeah.
That's what. The reason it's hard to monetize is because it's
So
uninteresting.
maybe the solution to that problem would be funding, like, and
NPR.
support the real, giving the capacity to some, I don't know, papers,
in India,
websites,
we
or
have
stuff like
Doordarshan.
that to do some real reporting job and funding them, so they wouldn't have to rely on private founders to make their articles, and so do the articles that
That's the
please
thing.
the founders, and maybe.
But I think such a system is already in place. You don't
Yeah,
have
but
to-
they will always fail. The government-funded ones will always fail compared to the private
not
ones.
government or something.
Financially, they will fail.
I was hypothetically, it would be a solution. Giving the ability to some papers to just untie themselves from the people who can actually bias the information they are presenting.
Yeah, and the main reason they were able to keep such a mandate back in the day is because the airwaves were regulated by the governments mostly. Nowadays, there are also airwaves that are not controlled by the government. So it'll be even harder to implement that kind of system. But if we could come together and force in some way or the other, or incentivize at least, media houses to allot one slot where it's just facts, only statements, no hyperbole, just statements that this happened in this part of the world or this country. That's it. If we could reduce it to that much, there could be some hope of rescuing the narrative, and then over time we can do better and better.
I don't see that happening ever. But I think there's another solution neither of you are thinking about that actually is already in place, which is the scientific method. As far as I can tell, it's a way of stepping back to another level of it. Is that allow everybody to tell their news, and then let's see on the long term who are the people we are actually listening to.
Nah,
Which is it pretty much works.
Oh,
that depends too much on people who consume it, and that variable is already known.
look
to
at
be undeniable.
Facebook. Look at fucking Facebook, and who takes the information for what it is, and out of context. People, they're not there. In some maybe it depends on the platform or something, but I feel like, for example, on Facebook, it's everything becomes personal and people are like completely unable to take
I didn't,
things out of their
it's not
context.
Facebook I thought of.
But that's
But it is the internet.
That's
When you come to that.
that's what's taken for real information nowadays for a lot of people. They say I'm informed. I saw that on Facebook. You know, they
It is real information in parts. That's not
yeah,
what I'm
but
arguing
it's taken
for. No?
out of the context, and it's always
Real
biased.
information in part
It
is
is.
just as dangerous. This is just a bull.
Yes, yes.
This is a Minotaur.
Yeah. Okay. No,
Half
I
information is as useless as no
You know, it's
information.
I get that. I get that
so
absolutely.
It could work, but then we would.
No, I think it does. It's just it requires more effort from the consumer.
Yeah.
And that's
That's the problem. That's the level of education.
that aligns with that you say.
Yeah,
it
but that's
requires
the thing. That's the
curiosity.
thing. Exactly. There's a reason why scientists don't delegate our work to general people. We say no. We let the experts take care of it because we don't trust everyone to be equally good at everything. So
Why would you? Yeah, you wouldn't
Exactly.
hire anybody who could
Exactly.
do the job.
So the media
Anyways,
houses-
no one would be interested in that. But there are ways to, let's say, vulgarize the information you're presenting. It's like in scientific magazines and stuff. I had like subscriptions to these like Science et Vie in France or stuff like that. They present the work of scientists. They just vulgarize just enough so
someone
we would
tradition.
understand it, like common people that are not specialized in that field. They would understand it. I think that's a great way. But again, they don't sell so many copies, not as much as, I don't know, other magazines.
So we have to have media houses which will do this for the audience in a
agree.
reliable, accountable way.
I agree.
Because you can't. I don't think I would trust people with this.
Now here's that's one way of thinking about it. This is one of the smaller but very. It's been a long time that I've been thinking about this. This has been one of the smaller but very persistent reason why I do this. Why I wanted to do this. Competent people. So if I'm going to talk about biology, it's gonna be not me. It's gonna be you talking about it because you know what the fuck you are talking about.
Yeah, it's great. You need to have.
And exactly, it requires for the viewer to find the platform, but the problem is that providing a false story that's more interesting to read is easier than going after a story that's true, that's interesting to read. So a lot of people, in hopes of getting more job done and then thus more funding, would be more interested in it. Now, I think the one way we could save media is removing the point of funding from it or getting it from random sources. The only way of doing that is crowdfunding.
That's what I was saying before. It's like you give the ability to some people to work like free of influence.
And I think it's in place and it's already working.
Yes,
it's not for
crowdfunding.
nothing.
I agree, but that's different from what you suggested about people will consume the media and then we can decide which one. That's different. Crowdfunding, I agree wholeheartedly because it's people deciding to support you or not. And if enough people decide to support you, you will continue to do your job. But if you leave it to people whether to rely on your news or not, that you can't leave to people.
Well, yeah, but that system is already in place, and that you don't know that because you are not an artist who. But the viewing count number, how many minutes are watched of what you do, is a representative number of how interesting your content is, and if you are doing a job on an intellectual field and you're trying to disperse information, then it's going to be an indicator of how reliable you are. It's just the way it is. It's not for nothing that Joe Rogan is one of the most listened to people on the internet. He's not very competent when it comes to science compared to you, for example, but he knows who to invite. He's also very biased by the subject he's interested in, on which I think we could improve by bringing more people and with the same format. That's why I wanted so desperately to start this, because I don't think we could do a better job, but I think we could complete it. And
it's a great
so
idea.
I think it's already in place.
It's a great idea. I do agree with that.
Again, that's gonna solve the problem of the information and how it's presented, but it's not gonna solve the problem of how it's perceived and who's gonna watch it. You know.
Not on the level you're thinking of it.
Because that's
it's gonna only do it for a majority. But the problem, well, here's the thing. As far as I can understand evolution, and you have to confirm that, what evolution is working with is not going to an absolute, what it's going for is a good enough result for a it's gonna be a certain percentage who are going to be out of their minds, and we have a lot of people who are not going to be interested, who don't have the attention span to listen to something of 2 hours.
It's a cost benefit thing.
The real problem in the end, it's not the quality of the information, it's the uneducation of the people who are gonna receive the information. Because if everyone was educated,
so in
these I don't know, these clickbaits companies and stuff, they just wouldn't exist, because people would be like, that's shit, I'm not gonna watch that.
Arthur, the thing is that they are dying for a very good reason. It's education is working. It's gonna take us 20-25 years, but it's gonna go away.
And sources like these Joe Rogan podcast, for example, or Philly DeFranco. I don't know if you've followed him. I think Joe Rogan had Philly DeFranco once, but he does a similar format where it's not a podcast, but he tells you just the news, and then in a different section he tells you what he thinks about the news, and he's crowdfunded almost entirely. And these kind of things, you may disagree or agree, whatever, but these kind of things are, I think, the future of the media. Because the internet that took down old media is going to be the same thing that's going to give us new media, which can be better. Can be. I don't know if it will be, but it can be. It has the potential.
You know that in some ways it's some kind of news liberalism, like complete liberalism, because it's like shareholders, you know, having shares of a newspaper, and it's a bit like that.
In what sense?
Well, this is way
more
more
it's crowdfunding. You have people paying to present the information. It's like shareholders.
Yeah, but they have no saying in what information you are providing, and that's very important.
But usually when you have like 2 billion shareholders, they don't come to the administration board.
No, but the majority will.
But that's the thing about shares and crowdfunding. Crowdfunding is divided per capita. Shares are usually concentrated to some or the other degree in some people or the other. So in shareholding, a certain bunch of people can have more say in what you do than others. Yeah, that's in crowdfunding. It's not going to be that easy to concentrate power.
It's also true that in let's say companies, boardings and reunions and stuff, it's like 10 people have like 70% of the shares. That's also true.
So this kind of concentration will be unlikely to happen in crowdfunding, which is great, and that's why I think that this is a good format for the kind of improvement. Oh, great! Thanks.
Oh, you've come from Mexico to our sweet region.
Travel the world.
Now,
beer.
Since we are at politics. I wanted to reflect on something that I learned very recently, is that when you are, I think it's a plausible theory. Every single time you're here, you remind me to say that, because I haven't, this is not a fact.
I serve a useful purpose then.
Well,
unless you throw a scientific paper, everything is hypothetical. It's,
theoretical.
Yeah, theoretical.
He taught me the difference. And some things won't pass the stage of theoretical because it just cannot be done. It doesn't mean that it's not true. Well, it depends on the definition of truth. But what I wanted to say is that very often this political bias that you see with our people is not coming from understanding differences or cultural differences. It comes from personality. Very, very those 5 personality traits and the underlying 10 that this is why I asked you to fill these up. It's a very good predictor. It's a very, very good predictor on where you are going to end up on the orderliness is insane. Disgust sensitivity is a very good predictor of your political interest.
Really? Because I can understand for some of these, like for example,
none of us are very orderly. For example,
if you're a person who needs order and who can't function around chaos and stuff like that, I can understand that it's gonna be a person who's more around the center and not too much on the extremes, politically speaking. But apart from that,
it is going to be somebody who's on the extreme. Exactly. That's the
but
thing.
I mean,
that's going to be a right-wing person, a left-wing person.
No,
as far as I can understand.
a left wing or a right wing, but just
I might be stupid about this.
moderate one, but just far from the chaos of the extremes. But then, how could you tell with these if that person is going to lean more on the right or on the left? Or
when you have a very high sensitivity of orderliness, it also means it is a good predictor of your disgust.
maybe agreeability would tell if you go more on the right or
That's also a predictor of it.
Yeah.
Disgust sensitivity is an interesting point because it serves a very good purpose in our lives. And if you think about it, you are also, in a sense, you have mechanisms put into place by your upbringing that when aren't met, when your needs aren't met around you, you feel very uncomfortable with it. For example, being dirty or filthy, or you don't sleep with the girl who doesn't shower. It's just that. It's because you find it disgusting for a very good reason. You can catch a lot of diseases, you can get sicknesses, or you can, so there are limits we are posing, and we are not giving up if it's up to us. These are rightfully there. It is true. Of course, it could be becoming so tyrannical that there's no exchange of information in a political sense. Because if you're, like I said in a previous podcast, is that everybody who's in front of you has something to say that's interesting that you had zero idea about. And so you have to keep those borders reasonably open, because you risk losing that. And then since you're unable to adapt, then you're going to just die out. But at the same, it could be becoming very tyrannical very easily. And it did in the 20th century. That's what we saw with the Nazis. They weren't just hating on the Jews. And the problem was that, in my estimation, the big issue with it is that these weren't first Jews. These were people. And they have villainized them. The Nazi propaganda villainized them. And Hitler, as we know it, was pretty disgusted with them. And they talked about, talking about rats and disease and everything. It's like he was a very orderly person. Boxes everywhere. Nothing that comes out of that's outside the box can be accepted, which is a very weird thing, because artists are usually the ones who jump through boxes or molding the walls of these
maybe he was an artist, a trauma happened and he changed.
Exactly, this is what happened to him, as far as we know.
Because when you read Mein Kampf, this is some fucked up shit.
You had to keep it. I mean, this is again going back to the premise of your theory, which is a pretty solid theory in trying to explain the phenomena. But if you go back to the premise, you can ascribe certain personality traits to predicting political inclinations and stuff like that, but you can't pin it down to all aspects. Like, what I mean, for example, orderliness. You're right, it would be a good predictor of how we perceive others, because it's based largely on open boxes or closed boxes. But you can have a very orderly behavior when you're dealing with a certain situation,
of course,
but a completely inorderly behavior when you're dealing with a disorderly behavior when you're dealing with a different situation. And that,
I think it's more, these are like special cases. But
so I agree that a trait can predict an inclination, but because the trait being such an abstract concept, personally, I don't know how you would predict that.
It's not about the prediction itself. I'm saying it's a fairly good predictor so the personalities of somebody is a fairly good predictor of where they stand on politically. And this is not that something that you are going to change with political debates, or because you cannot change.
Yeah, you cannot change, for example, what they're like.
The discuss sensitivity of somebody just by telling them that just quit it. This is not how it's happening. You have to understand that when you are seeing a political argument that's very, very different from yours, that's coming from a person who sees the world very differently from yours, because their personality, it is filtering out different things than you do.
No, you're true. When a personality is set, it is difficult to change their mind, and hence political debates don't often yield the results they want to, because you can't convince someone out of their own personality. It's practically impossible to do.
It is impossible, I think. But, it honestly is.
The reason I say practically, not absolutely, is because I don't know if anyone's tried hard enough. But I know that it hasn't worked so far.
Well, you can do it with a hammer, but I wouldn't say
most likely won't.
Yeah.
But my view my view on this is that you can convince someone or surprise someone and let them evolve and hope for the best, because political debates do serve that purpose, at least, is that you illuminate the other side and you hope for the best. But in the absence of them, it would be like not trying at all. So I agree that they don't do much because personalities are set as predictors, but at least they give them a chance to switch sides.
Well,
either sides.
What is I think is important, very important, is to keep the discussion going. And this is the issue that I'm seeing happening less and less. Partially because the media was the surface, was the platform for these political sides to talk. And one of the very interesting things is that Trump was, for example, the first one who embraced social media on a level that hasn't been before, and it hasn't been followed really.
No, I don't think Trump embraced it. Trump just
he used
dominates
Twitter.
it.
No, he used Twitter for the first time. It's no president before him, because either the technology didn't exist or they didn't deem it was important.
Because he knows how unreliable it is. There's no accountability on Twitter.
Not just that, but it's there isn't, and that's true.
No president ever done that, also because it's a way to express your personal opinions.
Exactly.
And sometimes, as a president, your personal opinions aren't the best to be spread around. And that's what they realized with Trump. I mean, his public relationship people, they're like, it's a nightmare for them. And because
it contradicts the idea of free speech, though. What you say.
Yes, but it's true. I mean, everything is filtered usually. Most of the things a
everybody
president
gets
says,
a say, then why he shouldn't?
Because it has to be, because a president represents a country.
No,
so
this is a very good point of debate. It poses a very inherent problem. But this is where the idea of political correctness comes in, and an idea that has been bashed a lot by Trump continues to be considered as a low form of expression by many people, usually on the right wing, is that political correctness is not a good thing. But I think it is a good thing, because while free speech is important,
you talk for some people who might not think the same as you. That's the problem, because he expresses his opinions about things, but they are personal, and he represents like what? For
world leaders have the burden of knowing that their opinion doesn't mean as much as they want it to, and political correctness comes hand in hand with diplomacy, which is, in my opinion, the best form of public relationships. And diplomacy cannot function without some kind of filters.
We have to. Before continuing with this, we have to talk about what political correctness for you guys is, because as far as I understand these two words together, I don't think it means in the cultural sense today what it initially meant. And
that's true.
In the cultural sense, it's been turned into a straw man, because
and in the initial sense of remaining respectful in a political way to those that we are trying to negotiate with, I do agree with.
Yeah, in a diplomatic way.
But what it means today...
It's like liberals today. In the US, it doesn't mean the same thing as it
They have turned it into a straw man. They have used it as something to hold up and burn an effigy of. It's not what it means or meant or should mean. Those are anyways semantics. But the reason it's a handy tool to hate on, the way they define it, is because they say political correctness means you're hiding something, or rather you're not saying it all, you're not giving it to us the way it is, not being straight with us.
To me, political correctness, it's close to diplomacy. It's presenting things in a way that's not that's gonna be well received by the other party. You know, it's
interesting. It's to
me, it's that it's presenting things that can be efficient in a context of diplomatic debate.
But I agree with the idea that it does hide something. Sure, that's why you're not saying out loud,
because it has to work.
It has to. You hide your emotions with it because it doesn't belong there. For example, of course,
because you're representing some other people that might share your.
And many people, this is quite often, especially on the right side, again, I keep saying that, they use not being politically correct as an excuse for being an outright asshole. Facts do tend to be hurtful. So if you're talking to someone who's in mourning or who's suffering, you don't tell them the worst part of the fact. You can censor yourself. It's okay.
But you do that. You do that. Just it's not politically correct when you talk with someone. You do that on a very personal level.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fine. I'm not gonna tell you the things I don't know. Some things I do that might not belong here or that might not just serve the conversation. And
it is filtering.
Yeah.
I mean,
Preserving social
we all
interactions
do
is
that
important.
because everything doesn't belong to a conversation. That's
I really dislike the
basic
way
interactions.
I dislike the way political correctness was made an issue in the US election or in many other elections, and they have really made it into an effigy that they can burn because they want it to be seen as a weakness in the progressive side. Because usually right-wing governments and conservative governments don't want diplomatic relationships with most countries. They want to keep it to their own countries. That is the ideology.
I have to ask this because I'm not sure that I see left-wing and right-wing, like you guys say, left-wing politicians or right-wing politicians are socialists for you.
Well, the
Left
definitions
wings or socialists.
yes,
usually.
yeah. So right-wing are liberals.
no.
Yes. Yeah. Usually, yes. Yeah. Liberals. Are
Either
more
liberals
on
or
the right.
socialists. There's no
Liberals
other.
are more on the right. You know the
Yeah,
liberal.
this is the thing about politics in the Europe and in US and India. I think
No.
is that
In the US, it's the same. Liberals. They're on.
liberals are the left wing.
Like capitalist.
Yeah.
Like not liberals, but the liberalism.
Yeah.
Right.
So you're speaking of libertarianism. What is called libertarianism in the US? See, this is
No, I think
confusing.
that's freedom of opportunity. What you're talking about,
That's-
that's not.
but that's-
It's
that's
not
what
liberalism.
liberalism-
Liberalism would mean, on an extreme sense, of total anarchy, where everybody is responsible for themselves and there are no limitations. And so, the other side would say that it's everybody's equal no matter what happens.
Yeah, because
that would be
that's
the other
because
extreme
what
when
in,
it goes
in
wrong.
French when we say liberalism, it means like it's in let's say in a business context. You know, the freedom of la liberté d'entrepreneuriat. You know, the freedom of
taking your own enterprise.
yeah, enterprise and all that things like capitalism
Freedom of
and
competition.
things like that.
That's what freedom
Yeah.
of competition. What I said is freedom of opportunity.
That's what we call liberalism. And
Yes.
the let's say what's
That's
called
different, though.
liberalism.
That's
like,
kind of a socialist idea, though. Just let me say.
Okay, then I'll just do this.
No, it is.
Then I'll tell
Yeah,
you
it's
what
like-
I see it as.
Because it means that the social, and I'll let you finish this, but the social environment provides you with stuff that they aren't necessarily or obliged to.
yeah, but what we call socialism, it's because it takes care of the people who are not able to do that. You know,
That's
because they exist.
the good
and this-
end of socialism,
That's
yes.
what the socialism does. It's like it looks at everyone and says, okay, they don't have the same opportunities, and we're
Exactly.
going to take care of these people too.
So for your understanding, and in France, that's the left side of politics, right?
That's the left side of
that's
politics.
how I understand
but
it.
the
also.
freedom of enterprise and everything, that's on
That
the right.
comes the right
usually,
side, yeah.
usually it's more on the right.
yes. See, now that I agree. with.
Except
Yeah.
if you
This is
if
how
you
I
have
see it
you,
also,
nowadays
yeah.
you have these these responsible enterprises and stuff.
Yeah, so that's the thing. It becomes a bit muddy when you talk about liberal left wing and conservative right wing, because the semantics of it are tricky, especially when it comes to the business side of it,
Yeah.
or rather the
Isn't it
economy.
all about business side?
The economy side of it. No, it's really not, in my opinion, because economy is a very important aspect of a country and its governance, but it's not all, and that's where left wing comes into play. People don't look up to the left wing much in terms of economy. They look up to the left wing for civil rights movements.
No
Yeah,
wonder.
because
It
so far the left wings when they have in the let's say extreme left wings, because it's not we had
When it goes to extreme.
No, but here's the thing,
it's
left-
unsustainable.
You didn't let me finish. You didn't let me finish.
Yeah.
Okay.
People look up to the left wing for civil rights issues, human rights issues, foreign aid, encouraging arts and education, stuff like that. They look up to the left wing. They look up to the right wing when they want lower taxes, less regulation on businesses, so that you can attract
Weird.
more
That's
businesses.
Exactly the opposite in Hungary. So for me, that's exactly.
Yeah. So I'm trying to list down what I have.
but
Yeah,
if you
but
agree-
maybe it's Hungary because here it's kind of the same.
Okay.
So on the economy side, this would seem like liberty. What I'm describing the right wing as, because businesses have more opportunities, they can do whatever they want, they have a higher profit margin usually on the right side, and this leads to a funny irony, because people look up to the right wing as someone who would lead to economic benefits, but right wing economic policies have almost always failed.
No, it's not.
It's almost always failed in the sense that the problems that we associate with capitalism today are born out of right wing policies.
It is,
Well,
but
the
it is
right wing
encouraging
policies, they
competition.
work, but they are less
Encouraging
egalitarian.
competition at the expense of individuals, though.
The right wings,
No,
in terms of
no, that's not true.
of business, they work, but they are less egalitarian. It means that you're gonna have some poor people and you're gonna have some rich people. What
what I
happened
mean.
when there were like far left governments on everywhere on the planet? It was that it was more on the papers, was more egalitarian. So
Yeah.
there are not gonna be any poor people or rich people, anything. We're gonna
Equality.
it's the end of it, and we're gonna
very
equalize
boring.
everything. Problem is then the people who are like injecting money into the society, they just don't go there. They
Yeah.
go somewhere else. When you decide to reduce, like arbitrary reduce the let's say the margins of some companies or something, in 2 years there is no money anywhere in the
It's
country.
true.
No money. 2 years. It takes 2 fucking years. And after that, there is no money. So everyone has to, share
This is true.
the scraps of what's left. And that's fucked up.
Yeah,
and
that's fucked up because of how business
and
works.
Also, there were also totalitarian regimes, so it didn't help much.
Why would
but
you say that it's on the expense of the individual that the right-wing politics
Because,
are encouraging competition?
Because whenever you favor capitalism or profiting of businesses and opportunities for businesses, you end up creating bigger and bigger differences between the economic classes in people. So
That's
they'll
where it
always
goes wrong.
be.
Yeah, that's
Because,
right.
yeah, and
They'll always
but
be
the
at the
idea-
expense of the poor getting poorer. It'll always be. And it's not,
okay.
it's an
No, I see.
inherent consequence.
yeah, because we
Yes.
have like a limited amount of resources, and if some people are like progressing and taking them, you will always have like in a system
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that, you always have some rich and poor people, and
Yeah, it's the Pareto distribution.
that's how it works. I mean, it's
I
it
find
has
the
to be-
situation a bit ironic because
but it's not really, because what it allows also, it has to be regulated, so it cannot go to the extreme. And you're right. The idea, though, is that instead of trying, the problem is where the left goes wrong when it goes to the extreme, is that everybody's on a level field on the outcome, which
Yeah,
means
yeah.
that if you're more competent in something than other people,
It's not
you
really
can't-
valued.
No,
I mean, your
no, it does.
competence and your efforts
does,
aren't valued because you're on the same level as everyone else. Even the people who don't give a fuck and
it
they do
literally
the
means
same
you're
job.
a problem when you are more competent.
I think then that's probably a distinction that I haven't made yet, probably, because the way I see it, equality of opportunity is what left-wing politics are or should be about, because you let everyone have equal opportunities.
No.
Yes,
That's
but
right-
I mean,
that's
the
right-wing.
performance happens in the context of a competition.
I mean,
Not otherwise,
here's the
you
thing: in their mentality, on paper, that's the thing. What happens in actuality, and what we cannot overcome, is that when it gets tyrannical, the outcome.
But that's
is,
when it gets tyrannical.
it cannot not get tyrannical.
Ah, that's not that's not true. Many Nordic countries have had left-wing governments for a long time. No.
No,
We had
no,
the thing
none
is,
of
for example,
none of them are rich, though.
We had some left-wing
that's
governments
okay.
in France, but
They're
they
not
were
poor
way
either.
more
No,
around
they
the
are.
center.
They are. It is.
They have some of the best healthcare systems.
The more
they have great
the more
social
left they lean,
services.
the more it goes to the extreme, the poorer they get.
I am not aware of
In
mass
terms,
poverty
you mean in
Nordic
terms
countries?
of people who
Nordic
subscribe to
countries
the
are
ideology?
genuinely right wing.
Nordic countries?
Yeah, Nordic. They are. They are not socialist by any means.
They're not socialist by any means. Socialism is a completely different thing in my
Socialism
view.
is when it goes
taking
to the
it to the extreme where you regulate the outcome. That's bad.
Yeah, but
When you try
can't
to
help-
cut off the outcome.
Here's the issue:
it's
you
bad.
can't help it.
I think you can.
No, in theory, but it doesn't work. That's what we tried in the.
Yeah, this
20th
is what is true about most policies is that they look good on paper.
That's what the problem with this Marxism idea that's coming with the left is that on paper it looks so very good,
because on paper
and it does. The issue is that it doesn't account for human behavior, and the one of the best things about humanity is that every single individual is different. Which means that if you could maximize this potential, then that one person could give back to the community something that nobody else around them could. But in order for that, it has to be a level competitive field, which is a left-wing idea more than a right-wing idea. But then
just
again,
entirely a left-wing idea.
you have to be competitive in order to grow out.
But that's the
some
thing.
people. So that's a right-wing idea. So it's always a mix.
Yeah, that's what we say in the beginning. It's
Equality
good. I
of
mean,
outcome,
That's
or rather
left-wing.
inequality of outcome is not a right-wing idea.
No, it's a
Equality-
consequence. But
Yeah.
it's a consequence.
In my view,
inherently.
the reason left-wing policies looked good on paper is because they promised equality of opportunity.
and you have to help the poor and those who cannot help themselves, because there's like a lot of people.
So yeah,
I agree with that.
It's a,
Summarize
it's a
it all by
mixture
saying
between
equality.
the
Exactly.
right-wing ideas in terms of liberty and freedom of enterprise, and the left-wing ideas of protecting those who are not able to be performing enough
Yes.
to
Yeah.
be in competition.
I don't
think we need a
that's
healthy
what
mix.
we said in the
Yeah.
beginning. It's
Or
a balance in between,
balance.
and giving the opportunity to the two parties to counter each other and,
Exactly.
and find some kind of working compromise, and it
Yeah.
works.
Yeah.
We are still standing in
Yeah, yeah.
France.
Yes. Most
Germany is
countries that are
standing,
doing
it's,
well.
it works.
And they stood up again and again and
Yeah,
again. And I
Most
think-
countries that do well have a healthy balance between capitalism and some or the other form of socialism.
But capitalism, by definition, is a right-wing idea.
Yeah.
So that's
I never said
so
that we
it's
discussed
sli-
it.
I-
What I
in
think
my
is-
head, I think it slightly tilts to a competitive field because nations are competing with each other on an economical level also.
Yes.
So-
but using governments that have tried to regulate the outcome of equal opportunities is much like using dictatorial governments as an example of.
It's not just much; it's exactly the same thing you're talking about.
Yeah, they end up being dictators because they regulate the outcome.
Exactly.
That's just bad governance. That's not something that I would blame on left-wing ideologies.
It wouldn't. No, I see why it would be appealing to people, because when you don't know what you're competent at, everybody's getting ahead and you're not, and it's not like a lack of effort, it's just you can't exploit it. So they would say that, yeah, I want a level field. I also see why they fail to see how that cannot function, but I understand
But asking for a level field is a good thing.
in certain situations, but in certain
It's always
situations it's not a good thing.
No, I think it's always a good thing.
Why okay, but why is there one winner on the Olympics? That's like you know,
but that's the outcome. You in the Olympics, everyone starts running at the same gunshot.
yeah. That's what I mean.
That's
It's
the asking for that is a fair and good thing, which is a left-wing idea that everyone gets to start at the same point from the same distance. Who wins and how they win, it shouldn't be up to anyone, any regulation at all.
Well,
Yes.
it's not completely. The left-wing ideas would be, why would only the winner get a medal? You know,
That's stupid.
that's
Not
kind of
really.
that
When
is
you have a
that
lot
is
of
kind
those
of
people,
the
that's
left-wing
not stupid
ideas
at
is
all.
why the
But that's
ones who
left-wing
are
people.
unable to compete not wouldn't get them.
That's
a
exactly
medal.
what I wanted to
Ideas
get.
being superior to people.
When
in
you
this
are
case.
when you are saying when you are saying at the beginning of this episode you said that there are some stupid ideas from either side, and it is true when it gets extreme, it can turn on itself very easily, where it ends up like we proved it times after.
Yeah,
and 100 millions of people are dead for these reasons.
I am by no means against capitalism. I can't be.
But you shouldn't be
And I won't be.
Shouldn't be saying that the idea of the left in any sense is wrong. It's just we shouldn't let it go to the extreme, because that's a bad thing. But the idea itself is not
it's
wrong.
not a surprise. I mean, if in our democracies the situations when it works the best, I mean, the compromise in between the two, it usually happens in between the most moderate of the two different wings. You know, it's just. Yes, otherwise you just can't compromise. So the moderate ones, you know, they are able to see the situation and to find a functioning way. It's like it's always like this in between thing that works, instead of just shouting and wanting to burn everything. Like you go, like you have, if you go on the extremes, like either the far right or far left guys, they want a revolution and they want to change everything. But
that's true.
Now let me bring up an issue with
going back to
these
how
extremes.
it was supposedly in the.
It's very easy to distinguish when on the right wing somebody goes on the extreme, right? It's like
No, I think it's equally easy.
No.
That's the thing, but
What
that's
do you
a
mean?
perspective issue.
that's what I
Yeah.
want. No, that's what I want to talk about exactly.
What do you mean?
Because on the right side, you see it exactly. You start to select. You start to select people. No.
There's xenophobia.
On
There's
the left side, on our left side, sorry, because I'm always confused with this, with the Hungarian system, which is exactly the swap, as far as I can tell. I know nothing. So, when how should I say this? When the conservative side goes to the extreme, you can see it clearly. Well, they start to classify people, and you say, yeah, the brown ones has to go. Everybody who doesn't have a blue eye, put them in the ditch. How do you see it on the liberal side, though?
Yeah, they do that. Look. For example, what happens? It's just. I don't think it's about sides. But I don't think it's about sides. It's about fascism, and what fascism is like you want to impose your ideas to other people. And for example,
both sides approve.
I've been confronted to that even here on the streets when you have like 4 our left people,
I don't think liberalism liberalism is exactly like, if you can make your idea work, then we allow you to. Now that would be the idea of it, no?
But fascism is something that can be seen on both sides.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say.
You can borders where it's unhealthy.
No. It's not putting borders. These are my ideas, and you're gonna follow them.
Fascism is imposition.
That's a dictatorship. What I'm talking about is not the form of government we're using. It's the
but
idea behind it.
At some point, in the extremes, you can see the same behaviors, like. People from like communist people, and they call themselves Antifa, which means anti-fascists.
Yes,
but then they come to you and they're like, yeah, but these are our ideas, and we have like a Meteor or something. And you say, okay, I'm not interested. It's not like I'm far from your ideas. It's just I don't have the time. And they are like,
I don't think that's the same thing. I don't think that has anything to do with political sides. That's what I mean. It's at some point. I think you're arguing for a separate issue.
No, I'm not. It's just that
I don't see how.
It's just you can have the same behaviors and the same side. You can see the same behaviors when you are going on the extremes.
I'm asking about the differences. How do you spot when the liberalism
I think the question was a bit misinterpreted even by me. Are you asking how do you separate left from far left and right from far right, or are you asking how do you separate far right from far left?
No, I know how to separate it. It's just I know the signs when conservative people go wrong. It's when people start saying shit about race or shit about that's where they go wrong. When the other political side goes wrong, what are the signs of that?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And that's what I get the point that he was getting at was also the thing. Fascism is the hallmark on both sides. It just shows up in a different way on the right. It shows up by xenophobia, or just in general. Xenophobia summarizes pretty well. Fear of foreign, everything.
And the other side is just not based on race, it's based on politics and your political ideas. It's that you don't have to, you can't exist here.
Difference of
because
opinion.
You think different.
Yeah.
It's just not about visible criteria. It's just about ideas.
Yeah. On the left, I think fascism
you're a
is
bad
about
person and we judge you bad and you shouldn't be here. You shouldn't think like that because of your. It's just about ideas. It's
like how dare you say something that is not the same opinion of mine is a very common left-wing fascist idea.
That's what happens with progressists and liberals in the US. It's like you shouldn't be able to tell that. You shouldn't be able to, think like that.
That's exactly where I was going with this. It's that I think political correctness today has became a vehicle for those people to try to exert their efforts, especially in the States.
That's such a reaching argument,
but it's far from the original idea of it.
It's kind of and
it's redefining the word.
They're just calling it that. Yes, but that's when I said. Sorry, I'm cutting you, but this is why I said when you say that you disagree with or you agree with the political correctness, not how it is understood today, which has nothing to do with its original.
I don't even want to give it credibility to argue with that, because it's a straw man.
Yeah, but they use it as an element, so just by neglecting the fact that it happens doesn't gonna make it go away.
They use it like it was an attribute of bigotry, or what they call bigotry, because bigotry is just like, you believe in God and you abide to the criteria. But they made the same thing with bigotry. Like it has now a political some kind of political I don't know, definition or something like that. If you're a bigot, it's like you have these ideas or these ideas. They do that with words. They change the definition of them and they use them in the wrong sense. They make the words theirs. It's like that's what happens with totalitarian sectarism. You know,
Yes.
they take words
Yeah,
and they change the
totally.
definition. of it.
I don't think many people know this.
Well,
That's why I
I'll give
wanted
you a
to
good
talk about
example of this in this same line of thought, and it's not a popular opinion at all in the left wing, which is the
Doesn't
side
have to
that I
be.
think I belong to. Is the idea of Islamophobia? I absolutely disagree with not just the word but also the idea behind it. Islamophobia as a word is flawed because phobia means irrational fear of something, and Islam is a religion and hence an ideology. You can't be irrationally afraid of an ideology. You can be rationally afraid of it or not afraid at all. But irrational fear of Islam is not a real thing. You can be rationally afraid of Islam.
You can be you can have a phobia about if you don't know about it, but you still fear it. It's not rational.
The word is so poorly
you know?
constructed.
Yes, but kind of.
I understand the idea behind it, though, as the same
no,
way.
if
Because
you're
Islamophobia,
saying
it means that you have an irrational fear of Islam, and I think it can happen if you
it
know
implies
nothing
there
about
is
it.
no reason to be afraid of
Yes,
Islam.
but you have no reason if you
No,
know
it
nothing.
doesn't.
If
It
you know
doesn't imply.
nothing,
There's
No, it
very
doesn't.
good reason to
If
be
you-
afraid of almost any ideas at the equal rate. That's
yeah,
the
but
thing.
I mean, if you don't know anything about it and you have and you fear it, it's irrational. Then it's a phobia. You can be you know
That-
nothing about
he-
Islam
he's
and you
not
still
saying
fear
that
Muslim people.
It doesn't mean that just because you have a phobia, it wouldn't be rational also to be afraid of it.
Yeah.
It just says
but
that it's irrational.
the distinction is
Oh, you're
being
right.
afraid of Muslims is not the same as being afraid of Islam. I'm afraid of Islam. I'm not afraid of Muslims
Why are you afraid of Islam?
because it's a pretty dangerous idea, as dangerous as Christianity
Yeah.
was 500 years ago.
Yes, but
I don't think
still.
it's true.
I think it's extremely true.
Yeah,
but
I think
that's
I think
he
the
might
application
already-
and the voluntarily misinterpretation of it is very dangerous. But I don't think
but
the Christian
Christianity
idea
was
is bad.
voluntarily and heavily misinterpreted 500 years ago.
but
as
it
well.
was misinterpreted. So the
And the
original
only reason it got corrected is because it got thrown out by the Renaissance and the Industrial Revolution. It got
and also because
It got
millions of
completely-
people were killed in the process, which is not really Christian.
No,
in my
and also-
estimation.
But
And
still,
also we
even
had
if,
the-
even,
Yeah, yeah.
even,
But
if,
what I'm
even
saying-
if the let's say the sacred texts or stuff like that have like they say different things, you might be afraid of that. Why are you afraid of Islam?
it's a very bad idea.
Yes, but why are you afraid of it? It's just
Because
an
it's
idea.
a bad idea.
It's
No.
just a bad idea.
That's the thing. It's not an irrational fear because I'm afraid of a bad idea. That's the
Yeah,
rationality
but why
behind
being
it.
afraid of an idea? It's just an idea.
Oh, ideas are very powerful.
Yes, it's a powerful
So-
one, but still, it's an idea, and some
Eugenics
people
was
buy
just
to
an
it, some
idea.
people don't. You know, it's like
Yeah, but that's not at all reason to not be afraid of. Eugenics was just an idea. It led to Nazism. Ideas are very powerful.
that's a good point, to be honest.
I know.
It
Eugenics was a
didn't
very harmless idea when it started. It just said certain genetic communities or whatever, these certain set of hereditary genes will lead to good features. These might lead to bad features. That was the only idea we had behind eugenics. Seemed pretty harmless in the beginning.
Yeah, it
until
wasn't.
someone
It wasn't.
started-
It didn't. It wasn't the origin of Nazism. The
It was.
origin of Nazism was poverty, and
No.
someone said, "Okay, I'm gonna fix that shit."
but let's
That's the
not go-
origin of it.
let's-
Eugenism was just a parallel. So
No. Yeah, you can go back to the records and see how eugenics converted itself into
yeah,
Nazism.
but in the origins of Nazism, what happened and
But
when he
that's
got
the
elected
political-
and stuff.
That's
it
the
was-
reason why Nazism happened in Germany. It could have happened anywhere else with the same
Yeah,
idea
but
of
it didn't.
eugenics.
It didn't.
Yeah, because the conditions weren't favorable to make eugenics turn into Nazism. But that doesn't mean eugenics wouldn't have turned into Nazism. It would have occasionally. It just needed the right conditions to flourish.
I think you guys have a misunderstanding of the word idea, and that's why you have this argument. But as far as I can tell, I agree with Archit's idea that it's an idea itself could be dangerous when executed, but you don't include the execution of an idea into the definition, and that's why you disagree.
Yeah, it's
okay,
not that
that I
I
get.
disagree. It was just
That's a very
semantics
good point. I get that.
It's just that to me, I can understand people who are afraid of Islam, like not knowing about it, and I can also understand people who are afraid of Islam.
He's
as
afraid.
as
He's
a
afraid of
concept, knowing
executing the
about it.
ideas on them.
Yeah,
Not
and,
of-
but
And ideas
to me that's
do tend to
different.
Yes, because
that.
to you it's like there's no real difference between, let's say, like the Lord of the Rings or the
Yeah,
or the
that's
Quran.
how I
It's,
equate them.
like both of them are made up. So why would I be afraid of one book and not from the other when both of them are made up? What he says is that when the execution is implied in them, and now that becomes problematic.
And
So
when I
then
say
you were afraid of Muslims. That's
that's exactly what I'm not saying.
those Muslims who take it for granted and
then-
execute
yes,
it from
but
word
then
for word,
you should- yes, but then
Instead,
you
the
should
way
be-
I look at it is Muslims are probably the most ignored victims of Islam.
Yes, but
as
then
being
why
the
do you
terrible
say
idea.
that you are afraid of Islam
Some of
and
them.
not afraid of Muslims?
I'll
But
come to it.
because the Muslims
I'll come
are.
to it. I'll come to it. The reason I categorize Islam as a bad idea, and sure, not all ideas are equally harmful, but religious ideas or philosophical ideas of religious nature tend to be way more harmful than not, because they have a set of rules which are based on exclusions or inclusions. Islam has that also. Christianity has that also. Hinduism has that also. Casteism is a product of that. Religious ideas do tend to be more harmful than not, and that is why I don't like Islam. But Muslims, who are the people who believe in the faith of Islam, they're just people as equally corruptible or non-corruptible as any other people.
Yes,
in
but
fact,
in the end, they are the ones applying the rules you fear.
some of them.
some of them.
Some of them.
Yeah,
Some of them.
because
But
I think
it's
Muslims
also
are the-
some of the ideas. Not all Islam is about destruction.
But
and
that's
it's
how
like,
that's how we categorize people based on every belonging. Some of them are like this, but majority is not. This is true for most sects of people. So when I say Muslims, about 70 to 80% of them may not follow what Islam truly instructs them, or what the idea of Islam is. But they are the ones who are usually falling victim to the ones who do follow it to a strict rule by
but
killing people
is
and
it-
attacking places.
Now this is very interesting to me.
And-
What do you think? What do you think about the fact that Mein Kampf is banned from being able to be read?
I don't think it should be banned at all.
Why
it's a
not?
book. It's a book. It's not even. It's not
It's
even
an
set
idea.
up. Mein Kampf, if I'm not wrong, does not have instructions on what to do, what not to do, and who to talk to.
It's a-
it kind of has,
it's a
you know,
mindset.
there are stuff.
It's a mindset that wants to be propagated. It's not.
No.
It's not a religious, but I would say it's equally as a bad idea as.
But even when it comes to religions, my idea is not to ban them. I don't want Islam banned. My fear of it does not make me to say, oh, ban Islam or
Anyway,
ban
I think
Christianity.
banning it wouldn't change
Wouldn't change
anything.
much at
it
all.
wouldn't even get things worse.
You can't
for
get rid of
extremist
ideas.
ideas.
You can be afraid of them, but you can't get. I think fear
I
is
understand.
different. Fear is caution, in my view. I'm not saying ban Islam
I
at
think
all.
caution is better. Because being fearful about something,
Yeah,
that's on an instinctive level. Caution
yeah.
is consciously
Yeah,
watching
caution.
out.
that's-
Cautious. Cautious would be
fear
better.
is not rational.
Okay,
If you're
I'll
rational,
change the word.
it's
not
more
that,
like,
doesn't have to be.
yeah.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to. I'll change the word. Cautious.
You are, and in that regard, I do
Yeah.
agree with you, because it has one idea in it that I really disagree with, and I think
Yeah.
the default functioning way of Europe disagrees with it so much that it functions by the complete.
The default function of Europe disagrees with Christianity also.
No,
just
no,
as
that's not.
much.
That's
No,
not true.
that's-
That's
very
no,
much
the-
true.
the-
And we'll come to that later, because I know
but
you
he
have
has
made
something
that
with
point.
the Judeo-Christian,
I know. I've
concept,
heard
so-
them talk about that before as well, and we'll come to that. But the point I was
If you
trying
want.
to we can. But the point I was trying to get to is that the word Islamophobia and the way the left wing uses it is so inappropriate, because they use it to censor any criticism of Islam, when Islam probably deserves a whole lot of criticism. And the way they do it is by saying, "Oh, so you hate Muslims, huh?" Which is exactly what the
well, that's the extremist reaction to. Yes.
you hate Muslims. No, I don't hate Muslims. I want them to have a better life.
I didn't say you hate Muslims.
No,
It's
no,
just that when you say I fear Islam and because it's an idea that's dangerous, I was like, yeah, but then if you rationalize it, would be more logical to me to be afraid of Muslims than Islam. I didn't say you
No,
hate Muslims or whatever, but I tend to disagree with that. It's what left wing does with Islamophobia. On that, you're kind of right, but it's not censorship, because no one is really censored nowadays for saying stuff about it's you can do that,
That's
even
true.
on the TV.
The
nowadays.
reason Islamophobia as a
Yeah.
term became popular is as a response to overly criticizing the Middle East and people from the Middle East, which was done by the right-wing media. I know it is a response, but it's a pretty bad response. My response would be, they're just people who are trying to survive and get out of a bad situation, bad country. We should help them. We should let Syrian immigrants come to our countries and
that's humanism.
give them an
That's
opportunity
just-
to find a better place. But let's not forget that the beliefs that they have don't deserve any respect. The people do. And I tend to separate
And
that.
I tend to disagree on the last part, because you don't have only. All of the Islamism is bad. It's just the Quran
Which part
is a very.
you don't understand? You don't respect.
Of Islam?
Yeah.